This is David Hoffman, filmmaker on a beautiful Saturday morning, about to interview a guy who my team filmed 35 years ago in Belfast, Maine.
All right, fellas.
I live down the road in Camden, Maine, and I sent the team up because I was curious about heavy metal. I had no idea what that music was, what it represented, who did it, and there was this band up in Belfast, Maine. Belfast, Maine is a bit of a poorer community than Camden, Maine. And these teenagers were out there.
Hey, what band are you in?
And they were competing in a battle of the bands underneath a tent in Belfast. And 35 years later, I run this video. And hundreds of thousands of you love it. What happened to these guys? Who were they? So I get the chance this morning to talk to one of those guys. His name is Paul. And you're going to see him back then, and you're going to hear him now. And I don't know what he's going to say. So, Paul, tell me, what was Belfast, Maine like at that time? Describe Belfast.
We had some sayings. You go to Belfast, you go to Hellfast. So that's very typical of what it was.
You're wearing this T-shirt, and you're talking about Metallica.
It just come on to me one day. I went over to these guys' house and I heard this Metallica tape, and it was pretty wild. So I said, it was pretty good.
Slayer, Venom. As a teenager, what did those bands mean to you at that time? Why are you, at that time, drawn to that music as you were as a boy?
Back then, it got zero radio play, got zero attention in any magazines, really. And then, so we heard these bands from these guys. And for me, it was the next step up, speed wise, very intense lyrics, very, very intense. I play bass. So for me, it's all about the rhythm, which is it's like the tires on the road. It gets you to where you need to go and it keeps you there.
Picture yourself back in 1986, as the audience can, by watching the video I had. And you're seeing a bunch of old people in the audience, as the teenagers in the audience.
Yeah.
Who's the audience, and what are you thinking back then? I mean, that's your peoples.
I mean, you got a bunch of chicken pluckers and a bunch of hicks, old people. They're going to see their grandkids or their nephews and whatever. We come in as this group that played our own music, and very loud and very fast, something that probably 90% of the people there had never heard ever. Even I was wearing an Exodus shirt. They know Exodus from the Bible. Okay. So they don't know them as a band from LA, so I can remember kind of freaking out at the end because we were escorted out of there, and it was I get spit on and stuff like that, but it was surreal.
So what do you think of the audience response?
Sucked.
I liked it when they threw food at us. So these guys just weren't ready for it.
No, they don't even know what to expect.
Great, man! I loved it. I got off on that so fast
Can't handle
because
the
we're too heavy for people around here.
We weren't trying to offend anybody.
I was.
We just,
Hey, they didn't like us. Bottom line, they didn't like us.
What is it you're trying to do with your music, Paul?
I'm trying to, I don't know, get what's off my mind, what I see, what I know, and show everybody, that this is really kind of a screwy world. It's terrorism and kidnappings and bombings and, everybody tampering with this and that, and it's just a melting pot, and just I'd like to, just give them my viewpoint on it, just blat it out to everybody.
For me, music was a way to escape and it really all throughout, for a very long time, I have to say, for a very long time, years has been a way for me to cope with heavy pain in my life. Instead of, I could have gone off and got just hopelessly addicted to drugs. I've had my issues with alcohol, but for me, especially the heavy music, the bands that I currently still listen to, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and I keep going back to Iron Maiden because they're just for me, it's like, wow. But it's just a place I can go and I don't have to be anybody but me.
How do you want people to see you?
Oh, I don't know. I'd like just people to see me as me. I don't want to be some, big rock star hotshot, I'm better than you or anything. I see that a lot in a lot of my friends, especially girls that are my age, think that, they're God's gift to everything, and I don't particularly like that. I just, want people to do what they want to do.
Do you think as you progress that your music, wild as it is, may mellow a little bit?
No. It'll go. I feel right now this is just the tip of the iceberg.
You join this band, and one of the questions you're asked is about bands, and you say, look, we're not posers.
There's a lot of metal bands, but now metal's going down the tubes now because you got bands out there that are posers. All they do is they're in it for the money and the women, and the women and all that, which isn't the right idea, as far as I'm concerned.
Poser is a term that was used back in the day to identify with lipstick type bands, that these guys poof their hair like girls and had big perms, what I think they call hair bands, and they would wear makeup and really not a lot of content to the music, vocally, musically. You'd always have one band or one person in the band, that a guitarist that was insane, very good, technically very good, could play solos excellent, write riffs and whatever, but it just wasn't and I still don't like excessively commercial things, because being 53 years old and lived quite a long time, I think, as an adult teenager, I can see the difference between something that's contrived just to sell records and something that is actually substantial, that lasts.
So you're talking about like being something of a purist at that time. You were talking about the perfect sound. You were dreaming about the band getting ahead, a purist.
I want to have a perfect sound. That's the thing that's on my mind the most, is the sound. I don't care what the other bands do, whatever, it's just the sound has to be perfect. And I just want everything to fall together right. And if it doesn't, I'll be upset, but, I'll get over it. This is only a Belfast gig, and if it's not right, then I'll shrug it off. If it is, then great, I'll get right into it.
Are you still that kind of a guy? Are you still a purist of sorts?
Yes. I definitely am excessively anal retentive with everything I do. Back then, sound was hugely important, and still is. I joke with my friends and my wife. I say, listen, if I had to have a choice, I would rather go blind than go deaf, because if I couldn't hear the music that I love, that would really totally suck.
You got all these beer things around you or whatever. You're still a drinker, obviously. You're celebrating beer. You were smoking cigarettes back then. You quit school back then. We would call that something of a real rebel. I mean, drop out of high school.
Are you still in school, out of school?
No, I quit school, but I got my GED, so I graduated,
Do you think you'll be able to rely on your music throughout your life? Do you think you'll be able to make it successfully? Or?
I think so. I have that feeling. you know. But if I don't, I've got other things I can fall back on.
Let's put it this way. Up until very recently, it was my dirty little secret with my kids. Okay? Because to quote the famous Geddy Lee from Rush, when you have kids, you can't be selfish. And you need to make sure that things are done correctly. And education is a huge part of my life then and now. And my children are all very successful, and they've all gone to college. The youngest one is in college right now, studying to become a nurse. I have a son that is an administrator at St. Lawrence University, and one that's a manager at our local giant food supermarket chain, Wegmans. So they're all very successful, and it's because they don't need to know back then. It doesn't matter now, but back then that yes, I dropped out of school. So when I dropped out of school, it was kind of stupid. Obviously, I was barely a senior. So I was in college prep classes. I was smart enough. I didn't have any parents, basically.
You just raised a question very important to me and my audience. Don't tell your kids the truth. Are you kidding me? I mean, really, did I have to tell my kids I smoked marijuana when I was a kid? I think I do. I think being dishonest is something fishy about that, because then your kids don't trust you. What is your opinion about that? Say a little more about that.
For me, I know that I smoked my share of weed, and I know that I didn't want my kids. I'd rather my kids, we didn't really talk about it. It was never really brought up. It wasn't like they know of it. We're very open as far as what was age appropriate at the time. And by the time the kids got to high school, it's like, I'm not going to censor you anymore. Okay. And another thing that really helped a lot with raising our kids is we always sat down to eat dinner. And they still look forward to doing that. It's a big deal. As far as doing drugs and things, is it hypocritical? Sure. Am I a hypocrite for saying, don't smoke weed? Yeah, but I'm looking out for the best interest of my child, and getting high I know what it's all about. And we were smoking some really good weed back then too, and I didn't want them going down that road that I did, because I didn't think it was necessarily beneficial. And they're my kids, and kids don't always make the best decisions.
Back then, you said something that I really didn't understand then. I'm not sure I understand it now. Being a headbanger, being a slammer, you liked it.
What does it feel like for you when you're up on stage? What's the feeling that goes through your head, through your body?
Oh, it's great. Just go up and act like an animal, and just freak right out, Like people around here don't know, they're seeing, geez, what the hell's that up there? Oh my God. The guy's banging his head all over the place. I just love it. I just go from the feeling of the music. I've heard people say it's like your worst nightmare, come true, come right out at you, because it's just so hard and driving. But I think that's just a good push, to drive it into somebody's head,
I don't know where it all started. It's this kind of brotherly-ish type of, I don't know, thing that's happened. And it's a weird energy release. I've seen concerts where guys and girls too walk out bloodied and whatever. Great time. We had an awesome time. And it's just a great energy release. The music is always, you go to a Megadeth show now or a Metallica show now, and you're going to see a certain amount of that still. The other side of it is, for instance, I took my daughter 2 years ago to see an Iron Maiden show over in Buffalo. We had a great time. We sat in seats. We got seats because I want to see the band. I want to hear the band. And she was blown away totally. But I'd see these stretchers go into the crowd on the floor, and they'd be hauling out these 50-something-year-old fat guys that just keeled over because they want to do what they used to do. And I used to do that for the first few shows, but after a while, I'm like, I'd rather go down in the crowd. This is back in the day. You could go wherever you want. You go down the crowd, be up close, and that's a rush because here's like your idols almost right in front of you playing the music that you love. But then you're getting slammed around, spit on, and everything else kicked. And okay, that's kind of cool too, but I'd rather go and sit down and watch it. But as far as playing an instrument, banging your head, that is like totally, it's an undescribable feeling.
There's a comment you make about the future. And you said, maybe someday I'd like to have a family. I'd like to get married.
So if you don't make any music, then we fall back on that.
Oh, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably get married, you know, and I'd probably move out of this area.
Did you? And was that a good decision?
Yes, I was correct about that. I did get married. My first marriage didn't end very well. We didn't have any children, thank God. And it did ultimately wind up an amicable, you know, and that took care of that. I did. So my daughter is my only blood child. That's mine. My two sons are my stepsons, but I've known them since they were little kids. And I've known their mother for a long time as well. And we all have a connection to a local karate school where I was teaching at the time. And my daughter's mother was an instructor there, and we dated for a while, and lo and behold, Melissa came about, my daughter, and unfortunately she died giving birth. So it was right out of Dickens. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. So I had to make some decisions, and right away, being an adopted child myself, that wasn't even in. This is my daughter. I'm going to take care of her. That's all there is to it. So the second thing is I have to get a better job, better paying job than the karate instructor, which was enough for me to live on. And I did the karate, the taekwondo, because from the first wife, because that left me in a really funky place. And I decided instead of drinking myself to death, I should probably do something better. So I started studying martial arts then. So 7-8 years later, my daughter comes along, boom, another massive tragedy in my life. And then my wife now, she was a student at this school. We had known each other, and we started dating, and we had a lot of very mutual ideas and thoughts, and her kids liked me. Well, sort of liked me at the time. And, but now they love me, you know, they're my kids. And there's one thing I did learn growing up, the way I grew up, was you have to let your kids hate you, or your stepkids hate you, and get over it. And they did. So it's worked out. Yes, I got married, I had kids, and I've loved every second of that time.
That's terrible what happened to you with the loss of a child like that. And extremely admirable what you did. I really admire you. And I'm really glad that you said yes to the interview, because you became a somebody. So we're recording this video on a February day in 2021, and somebody's going to look at this in 2081, and they're going to be a relative of yours. What would you advise that person you may never know about what you've learned that you want them to know at a critical moment in their life, like when they're 16 years old and 17 years old?
Whew, that's a tough one. You have to be. You can't. When it comes to a crisis, let's just say a crisis. Doesn't necessarily have to be a crisis. When it comes to critical thinking, you have to remove yourself from yourself. What am I doing? What should I do? Hopefully you've been raised to where you're not selfish enough to go, what am I going to get out of this? Or how am I going to make out of the other side? But, it's important. Family is very important, whomever that may be. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood family, but family is very important. If you have children, like I said before, when you have kids, you can't be selfish. They're children. You have to take care of them. And then they're going to grow up to be a part of society. So you want them to be responsible. So that falls on the parent. So if you're a parent, you need to temper justice with some mercy sometimes and just say, this is the right thing to do. It may not be popular, but it's the right thing to do. And have fun. Have fun. If you can find that person to share your life with, it makes all the difference. Because I've been alone for a long time. I've been married to my wife now for 20 years, and we've shared 20 years of raising our kids, going on vacation, just having fun and having a good time. And when the bad time comes, the sting isn't so bad because we have each other. But just to be able to share things like this, what we're doing right now is a huge deal to my wife and to my kids too. They're really pumped. So it's nice to be able to share that with them.
I can't let this end without asking you, what did your kids think when they saw your video when you were a kid?
They counted how many times we all said,
and I'm just now starting, these self-study theory books.
That was the like of that. So, comes out, I don't know how many times. And they also commented on the really thick Maine accent that I had. And I sound like how my brother sounds, which is, he's still in Maine and it's still there. And so they poke fun at me, and it's all good, but it's a lot of fun. They're really actually impressed.
So you think you're gonna win?
No. No.
Sticking around. Well, we paid the judge, but I don't know.
Thank you, Paul. I think you're doing great. I wish you luck. I appreciate this.
Thank you, David. This is awesome. It's totally been awesome.
Done. Yep, it worked.